Hey, how's it going? I'm Tony. I was gonna make some pesto real quick and I thought you might want to see how a chef does it. This is the simplest thing in the world. This week at the farmer's market, I picked up some fresh basil from my friends at Tomatero Farm. They had a special, it was like buy 5 for whatever. I bought a lot of basil, and I forgot about it the last couple days in my fridge. I discovered it this morning, and so here's how I make a pesto real quick. Look, pesto is just Italy's kind of answer to salsa verde, and salsa verde is just this generic term. There are tons of different salsa verdes around the world. In Argentina, they have chimichurri. In France, they have pistou, which is like a thin pesto. They also have persollade. I mean, there are salsa verdes everywhere, and so this is kind of just one of those. I'm making a basil pesto today, but if you don't have tons of basil, or maybe you only have a little bit of basil, you can mix basil and arugula, or basil and parsley, or parsley and arugula, or arugula and sage. I mean, use what you got. Fill in the food that you have. This is just about the technique. And so, I'm gonna start. I've washed my basil, and I just kind of grab this, shake out the water, and I rip off the tops. No need to go nutso with pulling just the leaves. And so I'm doing this today in a food processor. You could do this by hand if you don't have a food processor, probably a blender as well. Blenders are better for liquids because the gravity forces the liquid down into the blades. But a food processor is best. So chop by hand is a good option, I guess. Or some people, you could make this in a mortar and pestle, I guess, if you're a masochist. I have never once made anything in a mortar and pestle that I was so stoked about using a mortar and pestle personally. That's me, some chefs love them. And so I got my basil in here. Anything that's got some black spots on it that's egregious, I will take out. Now it's important to note, sometimes you'll hear chefs tell you to add lemon juice to their pesto so it doesn't turn black or brown. That has more to do with the type of basil and how sharp the blades of your food processor or your knife are. Acid is destructive to chlorophyll, which is green pigment, and so that never made sense to me. It tastes delicious, and you might get that initial kind of brightness and brightening of the color, but eventually it's going to lead to bad things. And so I skip it. I make sure my food processor blades are nice and sharp, and I usually don't have a problem, especially when you're buying farm fresh basil at the farmer's market as opposed to like that wimpy hydroponic stuff at the grocery store. I'm gonna add nuts to my pesto today. You can skip nuts. I've got almonds, California almonds, delicious. You could add walnuts, hazelnuts. If you can get a mortgage, you could add macadamia nuts. Very expensive. I would avoid pecans or peanuts. They're a little too flavorful. I'm also gonna add garlic. You know I like garlic. I've got 6 big cloves of garlic, and that was 3 or 4 big bunches of basil. I like to add a clove or 2 per bunch of basil. I like it garlicky. I'm also gonna add a bunch of cheese, but I'm gonna wait and puree these solids up first. I've got some olive oil and some salt, but let's start by pureeing what we got in the food processor real quick. Now, while this is going around, don't be afraid to give it a little bit of a shake in the machine a little bit. These machines are pretty tough. Yum. Alright, that's got me pretty chopped up pretty well. The Magimix, which is this food processor brand, is awesome. Wicked sharp, as we say back in New England, and good to go. Okay, so this looks pretty good. I'm gonna add my cheese. This is Pecorino. You could use Parm, Manchego, any other firm grating cheese. You can keep it dairy-free. If you're going vegan, that's fine. I wanna add cheese, more than I should. I mean, I'm gonna add more cheese than I should. And so that's probably 2/3, 3/4 of a cup of Pecorino right there. And I like Pecorino, it's a little bit sharp. It's also just what I had. If I had Parm, I'd use that. But I'm gonna hold off on salt as well until the very end. Quick mix, and then more olive oil. We're starting with olive oil. I'm gonna adjust the consistency of this with olive oil. The more I add, the thinner it gets. And I'm gonna get that pasty point where it's like spreadable paste, and then a little bit more so it just kind of can drizzle a little bit off my spoon, but it's still quite clingy. Like some of the women I've dated. Just some of them. Not you though. I mean, I know you're watching. Not you. You're not the clingy one. The other ones. just gonna stop and scrape down, sticking to the sides a little bit. All right, I've got this pretty pasty, you know, this is pretty pasty, but it's still pretty kind of moldable. I'm gonna add maybe another 1/4 cup of olive oil just to get it to that touch of drizzly little bit. And you can adjust this with water if you wanted to. I'm using extra virgin olive oil, but you could use a neutral oil or some other type of oil would be fine. Just make sure it's not too heavily flavored. Let's take a quick taste. Yum, that's so delicious. It's just like a taste of summer. I absolutely love it. Just a touch of salt. I don't need much. In Italy, sometimes you'll find their salsa verdes with anchovy in them, and I love that. I'm gonna keep this without anchovy in my pesto today. I love anchovy, but we'll rock it solo without it. All right, that's my pesto. Super quick, super simple, super easy. And so, remember, you can use whatever herbs you have kicking around from the garden. Again, arugula makes a great item in here, and a lot of different options for you out there as far as the nuts, as far as the cheese, garlic, no garlic, anchovies, who knows? You like sun-dried tomatoes? Check some sun-dried tomatoes in here as well. That's great. A lot of different options. So, I hope you fill in the food with whatever it is that you like to eat. And we'll see you next time. Did I start that camera? Oh no. Oh, I did!